The moment we've all been waiting for. I saw The Batman at an IMAX fan screening. Let's talk about it. The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, unmasks the truth. In his second year of fighting crime, Batman uncovers corruption in Gotham City that connects to his own family while facing a serial killer known as the Riddler. So The Batman, clocking in at almost 3 hours, is finally playing in theaters. If you're a fan, you're definitely gonna want to see this movie. I think it's definitely in contention for a top 10 movie of the year. To get it right out of the way, I don't think this is my favorite Batman movie. I think that honor still goes to Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. I think, however, that there's a lot of comic book elements that aren't present in this film. So at the end of the day, as a comic book adaptation, it might actually be better than The Dark Knight in that respect. So let's talk about the story. So the story, if you've seen the trailers, I don't want to spoil too much, but you know that Catwoman's in it, you know that Riddler's in it, you know Penguin's in it. So this follows Batman in his second year of being Batman. So technically it's not Batman year one. And he's definitely already has a reputation in the city, and Gotham itself in this movie is insane. Just the production design, the filming locations, the cinematography, the color grading, the sound design. It's the grittiest Gotham portrayal in any Batman movie to date, 100%. And I think that includes animated as well. And you could do a lot with animation, but there's just something about seeing this live action, just true like underbelly of the city, except the whole city is the underbelly of the city. Like it's not just relegated to one area. The whole city feels grimy. So it's really amazing in that respect. In terms of the story, you follow the Riddler, and I think they took a Fincher-esque approach. A serial killer, kind of like Seven. He does stick to liking riddles, but he's not as quippy as you might expect given the source material or previous portrayals of the Riddler. He's actually quite menacing, and I think he's actually quite scary in some parts, in terms of he could be anywhere, and he's like kind of like Batman. Like he's anywhere and he kind of strikes from the shadows, but he's only really killing a few people that are important to the plot. So you have Batman trying to solve the crimes that the Riddler is committing, and he really puts Batman through the ringer. He's solving these puzzles that are very, very interesting, not only visually but conceptually, but I would say they're more visually striking. The movie is PG-13, so there were some moments where the camera wouldn't exactly show you what you would see in a Fincher film, like in a Seven. Like, you know, when the detectives show up to the crime scene, you know it's gonna be gruesome, and you know you're gonna see those practical effects. Not so much here. It is scaled back, but there's still enough going on where you feel like there's this presence, and he's like very evil, and he's disgusting essentially for what he's doing. In terms of the cinematography, like I said, the cinematography really sells this film. I think it's probably the highlight of the film, along with the sound design. I think this is probably the most visually interesting Batman film to date. You do have Tim Burton's Batman, just with the production design being very interesting, gothic, but there's just something about this one with the lighting. I really felt that they nailed in the gothic feel a lot better than they did in Tim Burton's Batman. The score is phenomenal. Definitely a contender for a top 5 score of the year. Every time a respective character's theme song, if you want to call it that, kicks in, it's great. Like Catwoman has this great like James Bond-esque femme fatale theme song that's just really good. Of course, I'm sure you've heard the Batman theme, which has been getting comparisons to Star Wars, and it's really good. And the Riddler's is also just menacing, and it's definitely, if there's one takeaway I have from this movie, it's that they managed to make the Riddler a lot scarier than I thought possible. In terms of the acting, I think Robert Pattinson does a great job. This might be a lot of people's favorite Batman, but the thing is, I think he's Batman 99% of the movie. I don't even think he's really Bruce Wayne when he's Bruce Wayne. Because when he's Bruce Wayne, he's still just so gloomy, very depressed. That's at the end of the day, his whole portrayal of the character is definitely more disturbed in a way. He doesn't really have that alter ego Bruce Wayne as like the face, as like his disguise, like you have in Christopher Nolan's film, where Christian Bale, when he's Bruce Wayne, he comes off like a playboy, kind of like your Iron Man type, your Tony Stark type. But you don't really get that from this portrayal by Robert Pattinson. Instead, he's just moody all the time. You could tell he's really struggling with the weight on his shoulders, the responsibility of trying to fight against crime that's seemingly never ending, especially with Batman's way of fighting crime. Since he doesn't kill anybody, it's tough because they just keep coming back, and the city's huge and he's only one guy. I think that's one of the early lines he says. It's like there's only one of him, and he can only be at one place, but there's crime all over the city, and this city is like really grimy. In terms of Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, I thought she was really good. Out of the Catwoman portrayals, I think she's easily the best one. Definitely better than Michelle Pfeiffer or Anne Hathaway. I think she really tuned in to what the character means for a lot of people, and they also play into the romance between Batman and Catwoman, as the comics do a lot of the time. And while I would say that they do have that romance element, I wasn't 100% sold. Mainly not because of Zoe Kravitz, but mostly because of how broody Robert Pattinson is. It almost seems like he wouldn't be interested romantically in anybody given his current mental state. But other than that, you also have Colin Farrell, who's unrecognizable as the Penguin. He is a chameleon. Like, if you cannot tell that it's him. He has just a great accent that he puts on, and the makeup just hides him completely. And this version of the Penguin is a underboss, or I guess the right-hand man to John Turturro's Falcone. So you don't really have him being a crime boss with like all his underlings under him, or he doesn't really have that Penguin look with like the top hat or the umbrella or anything. I think there's one scene where he has an umbrella, but it's not really the comic book-esque silly umbrella with all the tricks that it has. I think it's just because it was raining, he happened to have an umbrella. But as a right-hand man, I think he does a great job, and they definitely set him up considerably because they already announced that he might be getting a spin-off show. Fingers crossed that he gets that spin-off show that they teased. I don't know if it's already been greenlit, but I would definitely be interested in watching that after seeing his portrayal in the movie. John Turturro as Falcone is definitely the weakest part. He's not terrible, but he's not menacing enough for what the character is supposed to be. He's supposed to be the crime boss, but I don't really buy it from him too much. But with Paul Dano's Riddler, wow, like he doesn't show up on screen too much, but whenever he's on screen, especially behind his mask, the Riddler mask that they made in this movie, it's great. He's the thing that they did with his voice, I don't know how they captured it, maybe if it was in post-production, but he kind of has like this, no, I don't know if wispy is the right word, but he kind of like, he has a very breathy voice, especially behind the mask. So it kind of adds like this tone to his voice that like makes the hairs on your arm stand up. Like it'll give you goosebumps sometimes, especially with some of the things that he says. In terms of the pacing, well, the edit overall, I think when you take out individual chunks of the movie, sequences, I think the edit is amazing. Like there's a phenomenal car chase scene. All the fight scenes are well choreographed and well shot. But overall, laying everything back to back, I think the pacing is an issue. I do feel that the movie is a little bit long. I was shifting in my seat a little bit. When there's some downtime in between the action, that's where you really feel it. But when it's action-packed, you're having a great time. When Batman's doing his investigation, he's really doing detective work. You're on board and you're engrossed by that. But I'd have to watch it again to really pinpoint which scenes were too slow for me. or maybe you can have too much of a good thing. I don't know. There's just something about it that made the movie feel long. I know I've seen long movies like Endgame and they feel like 90 minutes. I don't know how they do it, but when you watch a movie like that, you're completely engrossed and the time flies by. But at least for me, on this first time watch, time didn't quite fly by. Overall, I think the Batman is a worthy entry into the franchise. I think it's definitely a feather in DC's cap. It's not quite as good as I thought it would be. I think the hype has a lot to do with that. In recent years, I would say I actually think that as a story, I liked Joker more. I think your average comic book fan will enjoy this movie more though. Possibly it might become their favorite Batman adaptation. But for my money, I think it felt a little bit long and certain characters like Alfred get shunned, and it just seems like they give way too much time to characters like Catwoman, and you have these other side characters related to the plot to a certain extent, and it just felt like they were getting screen time that could have gone to better developing fan favorites. And even then, I think a big complaint that is just Batman himself. Like, he's Batman, but where's the Bruce Wayne? I really felt that having him be Batman essentially 95% of the movie, 99% of the movie, he's Batman. For some people, like, they're already out the door and they're gonna go watch this movie right now. It's like, oh, 99% Batman, I'm there. But I really think what makes the character interesting is the dichotomy between his Batman persona and his Bruce Wayne persona. So that was missing for me here. But overall, I think it's a great experience, especially in a theater. I think you don't want to get spoiled in terms of the plot of this movie. There's some good reveals. So I would give The Batman a 4 out of 5. Did you watch The Batman? Are you going to watch it this weekend? Let me know your thoughts down below. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.